hear me out. I know you saw the title and the thumbnail, but just hold my hand. So Dune Part 2 comes out, right? And I start reading the books instead of watching the movie, like a true alpha. I thought I would finish it in a few weeks, but it took me a whole month. And the reviews at the time were growing crazy. Every YouTuber that I saw was just in love with this movie. They were saying that it was the greatest sci-fi movie of all time, let alone the greatest movie of all time. So I was understandably excited because the book too was fire. And as the time and the chapters went by, at around the part where Paul rides the sandworm in the books, I just couldn't wait and just watch the movie. And this was the part where this weird feeling hit me, because apparently I just watched the greatest science fiction movie of all time and it left me with no feeling at all. I felt underwhelmed by the whole play. I was confused, because it didn't entice the reaction that I wanted. So I rewatched it, and this is when I realized that this movie is not as good as people make it seem. And as you watch this video, you will get it. And from this time till now, I watched this movie 3 times and read Dune Messiah, and halfway through Children of Dune. So I think I'm confident enough to say this, but Dune Part 1 was way better than the second part. First of all, I wouldn't go as far as to say that this movie makes bad creative decisions. No, but where I cross the line is when you people call it a masterpiece. This word gets thrown around so harshly. This is what inspired me to make this video, to be honest. And another reason that I made this video is because I recently watched Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2, and I was actually appalled at how fire the first movie is. Especially after reading the books, I felt like the first part of Dune is extremely loyal to the source material. The first is Paul. Tell me why Paul in the first movie felt more like a king than in the second, where he was actually a king. I like the way Paul just maneuvers throughout the whole plot. Paul is so good in the first movie. See, a reason why the Dune books are so groundbreaking is the way how unconventional they are. You might have heard this, but an unspoken rule in writing is to make the main character relatable to the audience. Naruto, Spider-Man, every other mainstream character follows this rule, and it creates for a good and understandable story. Good, okay, but Dune is different. Frank Herbert just jumps over this rule. See, he doesn't want us to relate with the main character. Since the start of Dune, we are told that this guy is not like the rest of us. You might see some relatable or conventional ideas here and there, but the main narrative is that Paul is not like the rest of us. He's shown as competent. He's shown as a person who feels like a duke. And Dune Part 1 captures that essence perfectly. Paul in this movie just feels like a king. And I love that. The scene where he is talking to Liet Kynes, how he straight up makes a move for the throne, beautiful. Even though I like the conversation more in the book, the movie just does it justice. And people bug out about Liet Kynes being a female in the movie. I don't really care about it that much. I feel like it's not a thing which ruins the movie for me. But I did wish that they included the death of Liet Kynes like the way it happened in the book. Oh my, it was just beautiful. Anyways, Paul, wow. Paul Atreides in Dune Part 1 is done excellently. He feels so mature and fleshed out. I like the scene too where he just tweaks out. What makes this so impactful is all this movie we have seen this character who is the next Duke in line, competent and powerful, who is a political genius, arguably even greater so than his father. In the books, he is greater so. Literally caught a hunter seeker with his bare hands, and he just tweaks out because of the visions of the future. And this makes him feel so vulnerable, almost makes you feel bad for him. Legit just said, somebody help me, please. Wow. And even after this scene, his character changes much, but at the same time, it feels so consistent. And I know people hate this movie because, no narrative ending, this movie doesn't end well. You don't have to fall into that pretentious movie critique persona and say, this movie doesn't have a proper ending. Like, shut up, bro. But no, give it a rewatch and you'll find it way better. And I had to do a little segment to show where I'm coming from with this argument, but this movie and the books definitely deserve separate videos about them. My father came here, not for the spice,
not for the riches, but for the strength of your people.
I'm about to turn this video into a Dune Part 1 glazing video. The reason why I say Paul in the first movie was way better in the second is this very reason. Paul just doesn't feel like Paul. Might I go as far as to say that the dialogues that Paul says sometimes feel stupid. And I know it's a harsh word to say, but stay with me. An important part of any movie is dialogue. That is what sends the message not only from character to character, but also from character to the audience. And the said dialogue has to be in line with the approaching plot, yeah? Imagine this. It's the end of Avengers Endgame and Iron Man is about to snap, yeah? The fight is finished and the plot is settled. There's this one final payoff left, the snap. And he snaps, yeah? And Thanos, instead of catching his L, says, Oh, you can't defeat me, I'm inevitable. See how stupid this sounds? That's literally what Saddam IV does as a servant of the Imperium.
Bow at my feet.
You have no right to say that after you just lost your daughter, your throne, your money, your army. And this is just after Paul was done saying his main character monologue. And it's not just that, the whole scene is just straight nonsense. Like the scene where Paul threatens to boom all the spice field with the OP special. If someone has an IQ of 50, he could deduce that this was a complete buff from Paul's side. You know that your dialogue is stupid when Fade Rautha calls it a bluff. Some of you might say that, oh, the same thing happens in the books too. But in the book, Paul intends it to be a bluff, and it's different in the books. You know what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. Unlike in the movies where it is played completely serious. This is completely different from the first movie where every dialogue set served a purpose to either develop the plot or the character. And every statement had a weight to it. Like it actually felt like a king or a prince is saying that. But in the second part, this continues throughout the whole movie. It's rather Paul saying inconsistent things or Chani weird dialogue after weird dialogue after weird dialogue. It actually hinders with the character of Paul. Because think about it, Paul in this movie couldn't decide what he wanted to do. That's not a complaint. He's doing that because he's concerned about the future. That's good and all. But what I have a problem with is when the writers don't know what they're talking about. Please notice how his character arc progresses perfectly plot-wise, but the same thing doesn't happen script-wise, if that makes sense. If you have read the books, you know that Paul grapples with his transformation from Paul Atreides to Kwisatz Haderach, and that thing is so interesting to look at when you know what is going to happen in the further books. And this transition is so good that it doesn't even feel like it. One could argue that Paul didn't change, but was already him before. The Water of Life was just a catalyst to unlocking the full vision. Sure, the Water of Light showed him his destiny and kind of fulfilled the prophecy, but he didn't completely change into a different person. The same with Jessica, yeah? Jessica didn't literally turn into a different person. She just got the memories of all the previous Reverend Mothers. Now, that's good and all. But that is completely played backwards in the movie. It's like Paul is possessed by some entity after he drinks the Water of Life. He becomes this different person in and on itself. Not in a good way too. Like, this is one of the problems I had with the movie. That they completely made Paul and Jessica different persons. They don't even feel like them anymore. And Dune Part 2 did the impossible. It made me dislike Rebecca Ferguson's character in the movie. No, I'm just kidding. But it still nudges me a little that Jessica went from a well-developed, not complex necessarily, but overall a really captivating character to a one-dimensional and a lazy excuse of a character in the second. And it makes me wonder what they are going to do with her in the next part, because spoiler alert for Dune Messiah, but Jessica is not present in the book. She just pisses off to Caladan after the events of Dune and stays there till the next book, which is Children of Dune. This movie made it feel like Jessica is going to be an important part in the next movie, and I don't know how exactly they are going to integrate her into an already perfect story, or are they going to pull a THUFIR HAWAT and just remove her completely from the third part.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Oh, who's THUFIR HAWAT, you say? This guy! I finally have a platform to talk about this, bruh. Where is THUFIR HAWAT? Where did he go? Did he die? Did he join the Harkonnens? I don't know. Do you? Like, this little thing nudges me so much that it actually pisses me off. After I watched the thing, I googled all the way and even rewatched the movie again because I was like, where is bro going? There is not even a mention or a statement about him. It's actually sad because if you have read the book, you know that THUFIR HAWAT is actually goated in there. His whole arc and also his death scene were just perfect. He was so likable in the book and in the first part. Now, I know that you can't fit all the bullshit in the books in a 3-hour movie, and I respect most of the choices Denny took to make this world. But bro, at least give him a sentence. Just some information. Nah, come on. Now all the points above are alright. I mean, I could have probably enjoyed the movie as it is if this thing right here didn't exist. The very thing that inspired me to revive my dead channel and talk about this, you know what I'm talking about. It's Chani. But nah, come on. Chani in this movie is so trash, so annoying. It gets even worse with each rewatch because you know they could have done so much with her and you choose to do this. 5 minutes on Dune Part 1 were way better than the 30 minutes that she had on this trash movie. This yet again ties into my dialogue problem. Chani says some through this movie that makes no sense at all. It was so bad that it made me wonder, like, why are you even here? What is your purpose?
You should kill yourself.
For example, Paul has already proved himself, yeah? He has a siege name, he has a secret battle name too. He has saved many Fremen and proved himself to be a better fighter and leader than most of them. And this girl has the audacity to say that you are not Fremen. Like, what are you talking about? For all I know, you could have been dead not for Paul. He has saved you and your people more times. Matter of fact, he's a better fighter than you, more productive, and even can ride a sandworm better than you. And he has a jawline.
Not to me.
Yeah, it seems like more to you than to the desert. And okay, these are all my personal preferences. They are harmless in the paper. But what about the narrative? This choice about making Chani this suspicious and critically thinking character could have worked, but it's handled so bad. First of all, you could have her slowly grappling with the fact that what Paul is doing is not morally good. But here, she's hating from the start. She's just continuously stating that she doesn't trust Paul, or he will not survive in the desert, or he's not a true Fremen. For a critically thinking person, your ideology seems pretty backwards, I'm not gonna lie. This thing might seem innocent at first, but you slowly start to notice that Chani actually hinders with the narrative. It starts to undermine the slow and steady degradation of the Fremen. Let me explain. So the Fremen are simple beings, right? The books and the movies too represent them in a respective manner. In a world of spies, underlying dialogues, backstabbing and subtle betrayals in conversation, the Fremen are actually kind of moral beings. Think about it. These are the only people who didn't use these shady tactics in warfare. They are simple beings guided by their honor and beliefs. They don't want to sell spice and earn profit. No, they just simply want to live life following their religion and their culture. That's why Liet Kynes is well respected by all of the Fremen. He gives them hope, he and his father, and somehow this great duke comes to them and reveals himself to be the Messiah. Of course, they're going to quickly be manipulated by him because they are being fed propaganda since the start of their lives, and this Muad'Dib is giving them an easy escape from their hardships and struggles. Of course, they're going to be attracted by the prophecy, but Chani is a contradiction to this. The movie is a cautionary tale. It is supposed to go wrong. Chani is supposed to believe in Paul with zero resistance too. And again, I'm about to bring the books. But the books do this thing very well. It shows the degradation of Fremen from this honorable and cultural people to a completely manipulated and disrespectful tribe, to the point that the horrors of the mistakes are still lingering on the Fremen, even in Children of Dune. I understand that I have tried to compress the Fremen topic in a very short time, and I might have to revisit this when I'm making a dedicated video on the books, but you get the point. I do agree that on paper, the idea of Chani makes sense, but back then Frank Herbert sat on this thing so much that the readers themselves started to think that Paul was a hero. That is why we see such a drastic shift from Dune to Dune Messiah, if you know what I mean. And that's why many people hate Dune Messiah despite it being a masterpiece, because it completely backpedals the image of Paul that they had from Dune. And the movie tried to do something about this, but it failed miserably. Chani is the worst part about this movie. Just a complete waste of a golden opportunity. This makes me even more worried about the third part, not because it will be trash, but because you guys will eat it up either way. But I seriously do hope that the third part comes out to be a really good movie. As I said before, I don't think that Dune Part 2 is completely trash. It's one of those things where if you take the top 5 moments of Dune Part 2, nothing comes close. It's when you give me the whole thing, I say it's trash, or at least not as good as people say. Anyways, don't let me know if you want separate videos on Dune books, because whether you want it or not, I'm gonna make it.